Good afternoon. I'm Tim O'Malley, CEO of Atima Media and Marketing. Welcome to the 20th Annual Hospitality and Tourism Summit, and specifically a great panel discussion entitled, How to Use Entertainment to Fuel the Soul of Your Guests. It's brought to you by the Old Post Office. We're filming at the AV Chicago studio at Chop Shop in Wicker Park. We're extremely thankful to film our educational sessions in this state-of-the-art facility. I'd like to thank AV Chicago for being our hybrid production sponsor for this year's summit. A tip of the cap to Andrew, Justin, and Amanda, and the whole team for their hard work. We're also fortunate to have some fantastic partners that have helped us to produce this event. I'd like to thank our premier sponsors, Navy Pier, Skydeck Chicago, Fashion Outlets of Chicago, the Shops at Northbridge, and Old Post Office. I'd like to thank our supporting sponsors, Live Art International, Safe Expo, and Salvi Media. I'd also like to give a shout out to our participating sponsors, Choose Chicago, National Concierge Association, Chicago Hotel Concierge Association, Spectra, Levy, Show Services, NHS, Balloons by Tommy, FedEx, Accurate Printing, Quest Events, and Expo. It takes a lot of help to produce this event. While I have your attention, I wanted to highlight the 20th Annual Hospitality and Tourism Summit trade show that's happening on Navy Pier on June 8th. We're so excited to get our industry back together, and we're going to do it safely. And we're going to celebrate our 20-year anniversary for the event this year, which is crazy to me. It's so important that we take this step together as an industry to show people that it's safe to visit Chicago and produce events and meetings here. It's time. Together, we can lead our industry back towards normalcy. Please spread the word. Let's show our strength. And it's going to be a fantastic day. We'll have over 75 exhibitors and 800 attendees, including the who's who of influencers in our industry. You'll see meeting and event planners, hotel concierge, guest services and salespeople, DMCs, social media influencers, industry leaders, and more. Not to mention some of Chicago's top tourism, group, and private event-oriented organizations. You'll also be able to sample some tasty food and drinks. In addition to the virtual educational sessions, there are 4 other new items that I'd like to share. First, the event will be held in the Aon Grand Ballroom this year at Navy Pier and in 4 adjacent spaces for a total potential capacity of over 13,000 people. So since we're only expecting 800 attendees, there will be plenty of space for social distance. Second, there will be strict COVID-19 safety measures. Our new event space has received a GBAC Star accreditation from the Global Biorisk Advisory Council, and we've partnered with Safe Expo to create and execute our overall safety plan. Rest assured, we'll all be masked up, there will be temperature checks, and everything we can do to keep everyone safe. Third, we'll be offering tours of Navy Pier. If you haven't seen their new offerings for events and visitors, you don't want to miss this. They're outstanding. And finally, we'll be producing an entertainment showcase this year, brought to you by Live Art International. If this name sounds familiar to you, it's because their CEO, Dayna Malow, is leading the panel for this session. So bottom line, if you're looking to find entertainers to book, or if you can't wait to see live entertainment like me, you need to come to this. You'll see one of Chicago's hottest bands, amazing magical performances, and a variety of Chicago's greatest talents, from blues to pop to classical. I personally cannot wait for this event. It's just so important that we take this step together as an industry to show people that it's safe to visit and produce meetings and events here. It's time. Okay, let's get on with the reason we're here. I'd like to kick off our panel discussion by introducing our sponsor, Jamie Sowski of the Old Post Office. Jamie's a real professional who seems to know everyone in the industry. She's also a joy to work with. As you can see, she's also a real trooper, given she's expecting in June. Jamie and her team have developed a number of state-of-the-art venues at the Old Post Office that I highly recommend. I'll let her tell you more about it. Please welcome Jamie Sowski.
Thank you so much, Tim, and thank you to Atima for having me. As Tim mentioned, I'm Jamie Sowski, the Marketing and Events Manager at the Old Post Office. I look forward to showing you a sneak peek of our venue, which is a newly restored historic landmark that offers an amazing variety of 13 different event spaces throughout. We're excited to be back open and safely inviting meetings and events back into our space. We're very fortunate to be in such a beautiful, large space that allows us the flexibility to spread out guests as needed. We have an amazing janitorial team on site who practice all COVID cleaning standards, including sanitizing touch points throughout the day with approved cleaning products, a UV light sanitizing spray gun, hand sanitizer stations, and floor decals throughout to ensure social distancing. Our private event spaces start on the first floor with the historic lobby, which is just shy of 13,000 square feet and features original flooring, white marble, and gold accents to make the perfect backdrop for any event. This space can accommodate dinners of up to 800 guests and leads directly into our grand hall. You can combine the spaces for larger event needs and pair the first floor with our additional spaces throughout the building as well. The second floor includes the Telegram Lounge, library, vault, and our marquee conference center. The Telegram Lounge has a full bocce lane that overlooks the river and city, 2 pool tables, ping pong, and a gorgeous wraparound bar surrounded by modern lounge seating areas. It's the perfect seating for lunch during a conference or for guests to enjoy after a long day of meetings. The library and vault are more intimate spaces with a lot of character, perfect for small, intimate dinners after a meeting or gatherings and cocktail hours. And the Marquee Conference Center offers 5 total spaces, 2 of which can be opened up into larger spaces and are perfect for socially distanced meetings. The conference center can accommodate anywhere from 10 to 400 guests, and all of our second floor spaces can be paired together for the perfect hybrid event setting. We're also happy to announce the opening of our outdoor spaces. The first floor features our East Riverside, which overlooks the river and is a nice green space for guests to soak in the city for a cocktail hour or break. And in addition, we have the Meadow, our 3.5-acre rooftop. It's filled with beautiful, lush greenery, and the space includes sleek black tables and chairs, built-in music and mics, and heat lamps that allow us to continue using it as the weather changes. The Meadow and Indoor Penthouse are great outdoor spaces to use for lunch, dinner, or in-between meetings. We're often told that pictures and videos don't do our venue justice, which I completely agree with. So if you're interested in more information or a socially distanced tour, please reach out. My information will be shared, and I look forward to connecting with you all again soon. We're often told that pictures and videos don't do our venue justice, which I completely agree with. If you're interested in more information or a socially distanced tour, please reach out. My information will be shared, and I look forward to connecting with you all again soon. Now I'm happy to introduce you to Dayna Malow with Live Art International, who is leading the next panel. Here's to you, Dayna.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dayna Malow with Live Art International. We are so proud to be a part of today's panel of experts, and we thank you for joining us. As we know, arts and entertainment fuel the soul. We feel that now more than ever. And here at Live Art, we know that oh so well as we work with our clients to produce creative entertainment that impacts event guests, while also advocating on behalf of our artists and entertainers, making sure their souls are fueled, their needs are met, and their work as an artist is respected. We are joined today by a group of like-minded industry experts that can each speak from the perspective of both planning and performing an events. Starting with Nancy Hayes. Nancy is president of Nancy Hayes Entertainment and Speakers, virtualcelebritytalent.com, and dancewithnancy.com. She is also a professional dance instructor, actor, and musical entertainer. We have Jimmy Riley with us today. He is the owner of Tri Legacy Entertainment. He is an audio engineer, singer-songwriter, and producer who has worked with some of the music industry's biggest names and is a band leader of one of Chicago's most sought-after event bands, Hey Jimmy. And Frayne Lewis joins us from DCASE, Chicago's Department of Cultural Affairs and Special Events, where he is a policy analyst and part of the music programming team influencing some of Chicago's most beloved events. He is also a highly regarded producer and songwriter, having worked with a long resume of notable names and brands. Thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So we're going to jump right in here, head first, and set the baseline for this discussion at where we find ourselves today, with the city and industry slowly opening up to accommodate larger events. We all know that group size limitations and social distancing measures are going to continue well into the future. So besides these things, or as a result of them, what do you currently see as the biggest challenging when programming entertainment?
Fear and not really knowing exactly what is permissible or not permissible. So it's hard to plan too far in advance. You want to make sure you have all the safeguards in place, but you also want to take risks in the event that we can do more exciting things. So I think the transition between what was an established budget, particularly for corporate buyers, and a programming that they were comfortable with, all of a sudden flipped into virtual. Now we're into hybrid, maybe lower numbers in terms of attendance, and lots of limitations, and maybe not the same revenue stream. So there's a lot of issues with budgets, and how much can we spend, and what will the results be?
Right, it's truly a moving target, where every single time you have a conversation with a client who maybe isn't prepared to book, the story changes. The presentation of options and budget has to change. So as a planner and entertainment provider, you're constantly on shifting sand of what you're bringing forth to a client to consider.
True, and from the city standpoint, you want to provide entertainment, but at the same time, there has to be that sustainable relief mechanism there that you have to think of in this kind of time, in these times. So it's a balancing act as far as programming.
As an entertainer, we may have booked an 8-piece band because a client may be unsure of how it's going to look. Talked about a moving target. Can we do the 8-piece? Maybe we need to do a 5-piece. We've had full 8-piece bands that have had to taper down to a jazz trio. So not knowing advance out what is it actually going to be.
Great.
It's been
Yeah.
tough.
It's hard
So-
to be a planner when you can't really plan, but on the other
point.
hand,
Right.
we're hoping that, especially with restrictions being lifted, that there'll be so many more options. And I know the demand is there, and the desire by planners to do great things that will bring people together. So hopefully it's all going to come together in a good way as we approach the coming months.
Right, I mean, thinking about the title of our panel of Fueling the Soul, right? It's not only the event attendees, the general public, that they want the live music, they want the live dance, they want to be entertained, but it's also the musician perspective of people who haven't been able to perform in front of a crowd, and that's what keeps them going, spirit and soul, mind and body, and they thrive on that, not only to make a living, but also for just, that's why they get up in the morning. A whole group of folks who can't do that right now.
And I
So
think we were meant to congregate. We were meant to be with each other, feed off each other. Now we have to do it safely, but that's why, like you mentioned, the musicians, it fuels our souls to have that connection with the audience, just as it does for them.
So thinking about, taking all that into account, I think we have a really unique perspective of folks, and I'm so pleased that you are able to join us today, because you have the programming perspective from the third largest city in the U.S. We have an event planner, a talent buyer with a vast background in performing yourself. We have a writer, a producer, a musician, a band leader for one of Chicago's most influential bands. So from a state of the industry perspective, can you just give me a quick overview of your individual columns of how you've been impacted?
Well, obviously, from our workload in 2019 to 2020, we had a 91% loss. So most of our musicians and talent in our base are subcontractors, hand to mouth. The gig, that means they eat that week. They haven't been able to put Cheerios on the table, and it's been tough for everybody. But the waiting, I've predicted that things were going to ease up 3 times, and I was wrong all 3 times. And so it's been a challenge because we just want to work.
I think there's a perception, our firm books celebrity talent, and then regional talent and local talent. And the celebrities have enjoyed, some of them, the time off, but the 99% of their crews, their band members, their hospitality people, they have been in dire straits. They've tried their very best to do virtual events, but the economics are not there for them to get all the equipment and to deliver the same product. What I think a lot of planners need to understand is that they are looking to cut budgets, but instead they should be looking to add the icing that will bring people back to live events, and that is the entertainment, and supporting artists. We talk about social consciousness, but what we need to think about is that the artists need to be paid what they're worth, even if there aren't as many audience members there. Perhaps it's getting more sponsors, but it's not trying to drive the price down of the artists, because the artists are suffering and they have so much to offer, and they are the ingredient that will bring people back. So I think that there needs to be an understanding of that, and some compassion too.
There's a real fear on the artist side of the folks that we work with is, it's like Jimmy said, you have to put Cheerios on the table. I hear that oftentimes where they say the event industry is in relief mode, right? It's rebuilding, it's reformatting, it's coming back online. But the entertainment industry, those that work in it every day, is in survival mode still. And so many of the artists that I talk with on a daily basis, where you check in with them and you say, how's the day-to-day, how's business? And they think, it's not even about business. It's about mortgage. It's about childcare. It's about rent. And I think a big fear, which, to follow up on what you said, is that we've all brought our prices down. We've all made accommodations in order to meet the changing landscape of what, obviously budgets from companies who are hurting as well. There are a lot in the industry. And will that come right back? Will that come back? Can we bring that back? And I think it's, as I wear the hat of both event planner and as well as advocacy for artists, I think the industry has a responsibility to make that turn when things do come back and honor prices pre-COVID.
Can I ask that, since the three of you have probably talked to more of the clients than I do, have they communicated to you that those budgets will be reinstalled? 2019, 2018 budgets, will they be back?
I don't know that they have been able to say that yet because of the changing landscape. And so what a lot of the demands on them are to create a hybrid meeting, which is basically 2 meetings. So they reach the virtual audience, and then they have a smaller live event, which basically costs them about the same as it would if they were to do it with full capacity. So their resources are very, very strapped. And I understand why they want to try to bring prices down, because those are the budgets they've been given. Right. But I think if they talk to some of the folks that make the financial decisions, hopefully they can understand that the entertainment will bring people to the live event. And if you make it experiential, then people will leave their homes and they'll say, my goodness, I've been waiting for this, I've been wanting it. So some of our buyers are going straight back to live events, which I think is fantastic. Others are creating this kind of hybrid model, which has its own set of challenges and opportunities. But it's just, and that's where the funding resources and these wonderful things that you're doing with the city, I think I'd love to talk a little bit more about that, just because I think it's such an enhancement and creates opportunity for artists.
And I'm glad you said that, because the frame of mind from a city perspective was, yes, we did put on great festivals and great events, Taste Chicago, Jazz Fest, Blues Fest, Gospel Fest, Summer Dance, those things. But in 2020, we quickly realized that entertainment value is great, but there had to be a relief and support mechanism. So we diverted many of the funds into grants to help the live ecosystem and the music entertainment ecosystem. And that was really important for us to do. And I know you mentioned, will it come back quickly? Mm-hmm. It might not come back as quickly if we don't keep doing those kind of things. So even in 2021, we find ourselves even pushing those things forward even more. So there are more grant opportunities, more funding programs. And I think that's important. You don't, as a city, as DCASE, we don't want to move back to programming as usual, mm-hmm. as if the music industry landscape has what it needs, because it was devastated. It was decimated. The venues had so many problems, with closings and, putting things on pause, and not to mention the musicians. They're out of work. So in order to jumpstart that, I think it's important as DCASE to keep on offering those grants and things like that to help build back.
And I think if people feel safe, they will come to events, mm-hmm. as long as they know that the precautions have been taken and that they can protect themselves and their families. They're craving the entertainment, and hopefully they're enlightened by what's happened in terms of social consciousness and just wanting to see diverse talent and wanting to support diverse talent. I think the demand is there as long as with both corporate buyers and association and charitable groups and the general public, we kind of help with the fear factor, because people are still fearful about budgets, and they're fearful about experiences that might put them at risk.
And on behalf of so many artists, Frayne, who I know were recipients of those grants, where that's a lifeline that they were thrown, I want to thank you, because those are some of my favorite people and artists, and they will continue to create because they received those grants. I want to give you an opportunity to talk about, expand upon those resources, because we had an amazing conversation before this call where all three of us were just, like, A, how amazing the things that the city has stepped up and done, and B, how do we help? Because I know that we were all like, we're going to get together after this, and we're going to put our heads together as to how we can get involved, and how can we initiate change, which leads us really into a broader part of this discussion.
Right. As many people know, last year the city designated 2020 as the year of Chicago music. Well, we all know what happened last year. And we quickly in 2020 moved to a support and relief effort, as I mentioned before. But moving into 2021, we had positive aspirations, but we still knew that we would still need, and the city and the industry would still need that kind of support. So we have also designated 2021 as the year of Chicago music, but we are still offering some of the fantastic grants, as you mentioned. I want to highlight a couple. First, it's the musicians roster, the band roster. This program will allow residents, presenters, organizations to use this resource to book acts, and we will actually pay the band's the fees, the performance fees. I think it's important as venues and organizations and residents in Chicago, as they try to move forward with booking programs and concerts, if we can lift some of that weight by providing the funding for performer fees, I think that's an important thing to do. Also, there's a program called Chicago Presents. And Chicago Presents is a program where emerging and established presenters can apply to either have 3 bands paid for as a part of their event, or they can apply to have production costs paid for. And this all helps the ecosystem, because all of these events traditionally have happened in the neighborhoods. And it's important to bring back the feeling of the neighborhoods and the neighborhood venues and the operations that happen around a venue in a neighborhood. A lot of these venues are the ecosystem to where neighborhood communities come and enjoy entertainment. They're family. So it's important for these grants to support those venues in the neighborhoods.
That's great, and we will have that information available for anybody who's watching, so that they can go to the DCASE website, they can find out about all the amazing things that you guys are doing, see the calendar for the year in music, and really take a deep dive.
Absolutely. There's one major event that I'd also like to mention, and that's called Chicago in Tune. It's a 4-week festival starting August 19th to September 19th, where we are asking all of the venues and presenting organizations to come together, and we're going to amass a huge marketing effort around all of the programs that happen within that footprint to say, hey, we're back. We're opening back up, even if it's incrementally, but we're all here, we're still here to help out.
That's awesome.
I'm wondering if, this is just a question, if those kinds of things could be partnered with hotel properties as well, because I know the occupancy rates have been very low. Airbnbs have been doing great business, but the hotels who are missing their conventions and meetings, it certainly would help the concierge services, these hotels that need to bring their staff back and want to bring their staff back. Maybe there's a chance to partner on some hotel overnight packages. I know a number of years ago with the Department of Cultural Affairs, we did this kind of Winter Delights program where we had multiple hotels and we tied them together with entertainment programs. It was very successful. Just wondering if that might be an option, because I know the summer months are such a big time for tourism, but people right now are not traveling long distances. They're traveling driving distances away from home, so maybe we can bring people into the city with those kinds of ideas or options.
I think anything is possible. I think by you thinking the way you're thinking, no, seriously, you know, we all have to start thinking outside the box. For us to start bringing back what we were used to as far as entertainment and, like you said, people coming together, because we all want to come together, we have to think of creative ways that we all work together, and even in ways we didn't work before, we have to think about how we can work together to help bring this situation to a close.
Circling this back, I mean, it's to many of those who are in our audience who are in that corporate market. It's also about building bridges, right? Because we had a long conversation about how sometimes there's the gatekeepers, right? And there's a specific, you know, let me see, a corner of the market that is capitalized by a certain group, and you have people who are trying to get in, and they're at the gates, and they want that exposure to the corporate market, and they want to be able to. There's a diverse amount of talent of all shapes, size, and color that should be featured on those stages. And so, as an industry, we need to create those opportunities. And I'm interested to hear from you of ideas. Nancy, you brought a great idea of how to do that and connecting.
I really think you've hit on something there, because there is a defined group of artists that seem to get all the corporate work, whether it's bands or entertainers, everything from magic to performance artists.
They've worked really hard.
They have worked so hard.
Really hard.
And they are so deserving to come back. My goal is to just make that wider, so that there's more people in the circle. But I think that there's what I brought up at the very beginning about fear. There's a reliability factor that comes from someone that's done a lot of corporate dates. They know where to be when, they know how to dress, they know not the proper protocols. And so we need to educate and interact these two different groups of the corporate buyers and this incredible amount of talent that's very diverse that they need to be exposed to, and they need to understand from a talent standpoint to fulfill these requirements. It's super simple. I mean, basically, if you gave a band and said, these are the protocols. So we just kind of educate the artists and we expose the buyers to people that they haven't thought about before. And I know with me, I've tried to kind of expose this year in virtual meetings to see the presenter market, to see the corporate market, to see the fair and festival market, and the casino market. And if we all kind of work together to bring the entertainment business back, I think we can accomplish a tremendous amount and learn from each other, because you guys have been amazing to talk to.
This is going to sound crazy, but I'm almost glad that we didn't come back earlier, because, to be honest, we wouldn't be having these conversations. Right. You know, there's an old phrase that says, if nothing changes, nothing changes. And I don't think we can't go back to the way the old structure was with, you didn't use the word, but there's some monopolization out there. Yeah. And we can't go back to that. You know, like we've talked about, we've got to bring humanity in the room. Frank said that. And so the pause has enabled us to think, you know, wider. And it just can't go back the way it was. It wasn't fair.
Well, and it won't be there. That's the other thing to think about, is that you have so many folks out there who are trying desperately to do this as a living. And so when the opportunities dried up, they went out into different industries and they got full-time jobs with benefits. Some of them are on unemployment, and they may not come back to it. So you are going to have this such a sad deficit of talent and wonderful music and art that will no longer exist because those people can't afford to create it anymore.
And that's where the healing is.
Right. And that's where it needs to be.
That's the opportunity, because I think that the average person, attendee at a meeting or just a person sitting at home, they are craving that entertainment, that connection. And so the artists, to me, like with the inaugural, you know, you saw the poetry, you saw the music, you saw all these different cultures coming together. And if you took the artistic elements out of that experience, just imagine how much less inspiration there would be when you see people interacting. Yes, I think that talent is the ingredient that is going to make people happy again and hopeful.
And the world is different now.
Yeah.
Than it was. There have been tragedies, there's inclusivity issues, and people that were at home watching virtual programming were exposed to a lot more. They had a lot more time to watch TV. There are things that people want to experience now that they might not have wanted to before. Mm-hmm. So as programmers, as bookers, as talent buyers, it would behoove us to push the envelope toward equity and inclusivity.
I love on our conversation the other day when we were preparing this, I've used the phrase with speaking with clients since then, is that you now can't make a decision about a business decision overall without humanity being in the room.
Absolutely.
I love that phrase, and it is so important now more than ever that we consider ways and means of which we can make a difference every day with what we do from a business sense, from a personal sense, and create impact. So I know that as a company, just to get a conversation started in that direction, we're constantly talking to our clients about what type of corporate social responsibility programming are you doing? How do you use entertainment as a means to weave that through? Can you involve a nonprofit? Can you involve a community arts group? I'd love to turn the conversation to that thinking and talk about ideas in which we can feel the soul of both the event attendees and the artists and bring those two things together.
Yeah, well, I think that going back, just get to that in 1 second, I think that the thing that should be encouraging to us, there's an old phrase that says, you can't turn the Titanic on a dime. Mm-hmm. You know, it is going to come back, but it's going to be slow. We just have to be patient this year. You know, I think we all thought after 2020, I think we wished that 2021 would be back to business as usual. And now, just amidst this conversation, I'm kind of glad it isn't. We're all pausing and we're thinking about things. But I think as the ship turns around, it needs to look different. And some of those things, yeah, we as a band leader, like I'm convicted in my heart that in casting musicians and talent and stuff, like I'm convicted in that I'm like I want to have a sidebar with Frame. It's like, hey, I need a horn section, but I want to give a horn section an opportunity that needs an opportunity, mm-hmm. you know? And I'm hoping that it catches on.
Yes, no one would wish COVID and this type of situation on anyone or anyone in the world, but you always look for a silver lining, and people are talking to people that they would have never come in contact with. I'm not sure if I would have met you. I'm not sure. I probably would have met you at some point, but I'm not sure who I would have met if we didn't have certain things that needed to be righted in our atmosphere. There are certain situations that needed to come about, that, you know, racial injustice and certain things that happened during this time period that feels like it was time for it to happen. And what you're saying about talking to different people, working with different people, you know, coming together with different performers, that might be one of the silver linings of this situation.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that it's a catalyst for change that we've all needed to get out of, you know, what felt like normal and okay and fine in terms of our programming, and saying to our clients, gosh, maybe we should look for funding through this not-for-profit, or maybe we could bring people together and inspire them to enjoy a wonderful entertainment event that has that's tied to a purpose or cause. I think that it will build attendance, and it'll just bring people together. and they have that conversation that we've all not been having because everybody's been in their homes. So I agree with everything you guys have said. And I think that being open-minded, it's sad that this has had to happen to make people more open-minded, but hopefully it's going to end in a positive way in terms of that, growth in that area. So, and I think funding. I think that I've talked to corporate clients about this, and they've said, wow, we don't have these budgets, we don't have these budgets. But if you are also contributing to a charitable cause, then maybe you can enrich that budget. And it will help everybody across the board, sponsors, entertainers, talent, and attendees.
And that's important. And when you speak about budgets, folks' budgets aren't going to be, they're not going to bounce back. But that's why a mechanism like the band roster is important. If some of your clients or some of the talent buyers can use the band roster as a resource, not only will the fees, the performance fees help them, but the band roster is so diverse, they might discover a group or a band that they might not have discovered before.
And the impact on those bands is just immeasurable.
Right, incredible.
Right? I mean, we all know that business is usually created via word of mouth and through relationships. So when you make that one spark and you connect those two pieces, there's more to follow. So you can get somebody on a path of success where, you know, not only are you elevating their brand, but they're feeding their family, their band members are feeding their family. So it's really, we play a big role in terms of making a difference in people, sometimes without even knowing it.
Well, I've played with musicians. I meet a guy at a church, and I'll be like, "You're great. How come I didn't know about you?" You know, and it's just like, you know.
And I feel like the market is such that they all help each other. So like musicians that I deal with, I just admire so much, because if they're not available for a job, then they'll say, well, here's a list of some great people that are, and they know it's going to come back to them.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's a community market where they really help each other. But having it be wider is hugely important. It also serves the needs of the market better.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, and thinking about out of the box, I mean, we can talk about some ideas in terms of how we fuel the soul, create impact on both sides of the market. And I'd love to hear some ideas that you maybe have that are percolating in your brains. But also thinking, I want to draw attention to something that Nancy said on our call the other day about advocating for the artist, which is something that we really take a lot of pride in, where you mentioned that you booked an act and that they didn't have transportation to get there and back for their equipment. And so I think that as event planners, we have to think out of the box, sometimes not only advocating on behalf of our clients and making sure that their needs are met, but sometimes thinking of, well, how can I help this artist? How can I help them get a leg up? How can I help them get a booking?
And that's where I think it's important, and Nancy and I talked about it before, and I think it's important for us to try to educate as well. Because obviously we know the talent's there. You know,
Definitely.
in every neighborhood in Chicago there are talented folks, but they might not know what it takes to be a corporate performer. One of the ideas might be to have corporate performance workshops.
Definitely.
Great
idea.
Where
Fantastic.
these wonderful bands and solo duet artists come and learn what it takes. Some of them might say, it's not for me. But at the same time, there might be many gems that come out and say, I can do that. And
Great idea. I think that artists have been marketed to do showcases that are very expensive. They're out of, a lot of times, the realm of what they can do, and then they'll pay for all of this, and then they won't get bookings out of it. If it were supported where really, really, you know, merit-driven artists were able to get exposure to the corporate buyers, and they also understood the protocols of doing a corporate event, then there could be real breakthrough. Because if there isn't that fee that they have to pay to perform, there should be a screening, obviously, but I think that has closed the door to lots of folks. And I also noticed this having child actors, professional actors in my family, but a lot of the most talented kids, their mom would be working all day. They couldn't get to that audition. They couldn't, and they deserved to be there because they actually were better for the job or what they were looking for. And I think access is huge, and creating just what you said, there has to be a system in place. I know with like the vaccine hunters, people were helping people and getting rides and such. If we could extend that to the larger community, to so many folks that are deserving, but feel safe, so it obviously has to be controlled, I think that could be breakthrough. That gets me so happy.
I could think of some working musicians who've been working for a very long time that could use some corporate training.
Right. But I think the showcase mechanism overall, that kind of event could help, you know, especially if the barriers to access are lowered. You know, some of these showcases, you know, you charge $700, $800, $1,000 for you to be a part of it, which is counterproductive to where we are right now in the world. But coming out of this, if we can kind of create a showcase mechanism where, you know, yes, you want the quality bands and the quality artists to showcase, but at the end of the day, it's about eyes on acts, eyes on acts, eyes on performers. And we need to get more eyes like the people here on these performers. It might take folks like yourselves looking into certain bands that you want to quote unquote internship with you. You might have an event.
Love that.
Yeah, you might have an event where, okay, you're not quite ready to play the main stage, but I do have a smaller slot for you, so you can kind of see what it's going to take, and maybe next year you can have more work at this event, but right now I'm going to book this other act for the headliner, and you come do the cocktail party over here because I think you have potential. But it might take that kind of...
And I think what's happening with the market is because of hybrid. I've noticed that, I'll just give the example of magic. So you have a very large illusionist who's a fabulous, more expensive entertainer, a la David Copperfield style, and that is one type of magician. And then you have sleight of hand, or you might have someone that works great in a small medium. Well, that person is perfect for virtual, but really doesn't work that well on a really big stage. So a lot of it, or it could be a very versatile talent that can do both and can do your hybrid meeting and can be in the main stage and then move over and do the virtual. So I think there's, it's education, and it is certainly not lack of talent. There's talent that is just so deserving, but they do need to know what is expected of them and what's going to work well to showcase their abilities. So I am really enthusiastic about that.
When we talk about like showcasing some talent, giving them visibility,
Right.
I'd like to know what you guys, I know some other organizations who are very active in shooting videos, demos. You know, they set up in a studio like this and they'll play, and then they list those on the site. I'd like you guys to speak into that. Do you feel like that's effective? And if so, some of the talent that hasn't been given the opportunity yet, I would think it might be great for them. It's like, well, here's some talent maybe you've never seen. Oh, wow, they're great. I'll book them. I mean, what is your thought on that?
To me, it's only effective if there isn't a barrier of access to the talent buyer or event planner that is watching. So if you have a showcase and the band showcases their work but still has to go through a gatekeeper to get information and to get booked, it's not going to work as well.
Right.
But if you have a showcase with an interview process intertwined, where they showcase, but then they can go in a room and actually sit down with the people that would book them without the barrier or manager, then I think it might work better.
What I'm seeing with a lot of my clients, and this was happening even pre-COVID with the level of technology and accessibility of things like YouTube and iPhones having such great cameras, people were saying, I don't want to see the polished promotional video. Show me that YouTube video where, you know, they're live on stage and maybe it's crowd noise in the background because they want to see the authenticity of the artist. Right.
That's what I was going to mention about the videos.
Videos.
You know, the showcases that I have programmed and organized, when I ask for submissions, on purpose, I say a live, unedited video, because you can take 3 weeks and put together a music video in a way where we don't know the true talent that's coming out of it. Yeah, so I agree with that.
A lot of what's out there in the industry right now.
And then it puts pressure on folks to have all that equipment I like the idea of that, but then again, it depends on the purpose. So you can have someone who's fantastic for 3 minutes, but can they sustain a concert in a live venue and really hold the audience? And do they understand that maybe for a corporate event there needs to be mostly cover tunes that people will recognize, and then maybe peppered in some original music, which is very different from an artist that is driven by their own art, and they really don't, they want to perform for their own fans, they want to expose. So there needs to be a bridge there. I think that's another resistance by corporate buyers, because they want to make sure that their audience will receive the music or whatever the entertainment is well, and they want bands like your band.
This is a great point, I think, for everybody to hear. So what I'm getting from you is what you're saying is we would like to see something more organic and less polished.
Well, and I think that kind of adding to that out-of-the-box thinking, where as event planners and those who kind of sit at the table and do that creative brain purge with the client, we can start proposing. I mean, this is a great time to do it. Everybody had their entertainment plans flipped on them and went virtual and hybrid, and some in a matter of months, some it took a little bit longer, but they were already like topsy-turvy on what to do. This is a great opportunity to say, hey, how about taking more of a street festival presentation to your event? How about going more of a nightclub feel, where it's not like your typical party where people sit down and then you have a band that takes the stage at a certain time? Totally flipping the switch and creating something new and unique from the planner perspective, so that you can open some of the gates for some of these entertainers that may not fit into that conventional space.
I think it's all about experiential right now.
Right.
I think it's creating something unique that speaks to the time. And yes, I agree with that 100%. So for the average person, what's going to convince them that they want to go out and see live music? There's the safety concerns, particularly coming into the city. There's some resistance there, of fear. And then just being able to just enjoy yourself and know that you can celebrate, have fun, maybe dance.
Hopefully soon.
That's, and thematically, I think that's a great way to go, because you're creating an atmosphere that's very different than what they've been doing sitting behind their computer at home. And everyone's looking for that.
And that's where creating moments come in. Because, if you know that you're going to go to an event and get the same rubber chicken meal and see the same, band doing cover tunes, it might not push you past that barrier of leaving the house. But if you know that there's going to be a special moment, a mashup between two different bands or two different genres that you've never seen before that you love, that memorable moment might say, oh, now's the time for me to go forth.
And I love what you were talking about the different age groups and demographics, and exposing people to, young people to what maybe older people like in a way that they like it. So, because a lot of grandparents haven't been able to see their grandkids, and they would love a celebratory, almost wedding type situation where they can get together. But it sure helps if there's a little bit of music that they can relate to, and then, a little bit of new stuff that they go, wow, I really like that. And then there's that conversation that we were talking about that happens.
I think that talent booking representatives, Dayna, we've talked about this, I think need to be more courageous. I mean, in years past, some of the street fests, you could cut and paste the bands from every year. And I know there's some diplomacy there and what have you, but what about taking the courage of like, you know what, we're going to give the 9 o'clock spot on the Saturday night to this band, not the regular band. And that's what I hope to see change.
Let's hope. Well, that's a great way, that's a great button on our conversation about change, about changing the way that we think about presenting talent, taking the way that we digest it, and creating opportunities for others. Thank you all so much for joining us today. Really was an enlightening experience, and I hope to have the opportunity to talk with you all about this again. And thank you for joining us. And thank you again to our panel for sharing their knowledge and insight. We hope you leave today's discussion with renewed energy to think outside the box when booking entertainment. We want to thank Atima for allowing us this platform and for all that they do to support the industry as a whole. My name is Dayna Malow with Live Art International. We look forward to seeing you at an event real soon.
Okay, you can't leave empty-handed. You guys did a wonderful job with this. I hope you guys enjoyed yourself, really. I hope you guys, and audience at home, enjoyed it as much as I did. By the way, Nancy, you mentioned how people want to get back to see entertainment. That is the thing I miss the most through this whole thing. So I'm more jacked to go see some performers now than I was before you started. So thank you. But seriously, thank you. Please, we have Garrett popcorn for all of you to take home with you. I hope you enjoy it. And I want to thank Dayna. Great job pulling this panel together. Really outstanding. And if you are watching at home on May 26th, and you have any more questions, our panelists will be around till 3 p.m. to answer them. If you're watching this after May 26th on Expo, a recording of it, you can see the questions and answers that were posted today in the feed on this page. But you will not be able to ask questions. So before I let you get back to Q&A, please join us on June 2nd at noon for a great panel discussion entitled How to Promote Your Business or Event Through Social Media Influencers. The panel will be led by Daniel Thomas, President and CEO of Time Zone 1. I'm looking forward to this session. Daniel's, he's one of these people that always brings a unique perspective to challenge your thinking. So I'm really looking forward to what he has to say. So finally, I can't wait to see you all on June 8th at Navy Pier in the Aon Grand Ballroom. Please now continue with your questions. Have a great day. Thank you.